the United States. Of course, 1940, democracy was in jeopardy in Europe. The next year, we were in the Second World War. So this was a very well-attended statue during the Second World War, and this is our Statue of Liberty here in Boston. So, and the Freedom Trail is this brick trail that runs through the city right here. This is the Freedom Trail. You can barely see it, but that's it. And it is a brick trail that goes 2.5 miles through the city of Boston. So very quickly, I'm going to recite the poem for you right now. So if you look at the steeple and the statue, and if you want to come around to the front, you may. He wrote his poems for his children. This was written in 1861 on the eve of the American Civil War. It was used as propaganda for the North during that war. Longfellow was a Harvard professor of Greek and Latin. And it goes like this. Listen, my children, you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere on the 18th of April of '75. Hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, if the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal light. Oneth by land, twoeth by sea, I on the opposite shore shall be ready to ride and spread the alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, and for the country folk to be up into arm. Then he said good night with muffled oars, silently rowed to the Charlestown shore. Just as the moon rose over the bay where swinging wide in her mooring lay the Somerset, a British man of war, a phantom ship with each mast and spar across the moon like a prison bar. The huge black hulk that was magnified by its own reflection in the tide. Meanwhile, his friend through alley and street wanders and watches with eager ears. From silence around him, he hears the muster of men at the barrack door, the sound of arms, the tramp of feet, and the measured tread of the grenadiers marching down to their boats on the shore. Then he climbs the tower of the Old North Church by the wooden stairs with stealthy tread to the belfry chamber overhead, and startle the pigeons from their perch. On somber rafters round him made, masses and moving shapes of shade. By the trembling ladder, steep and tall, to the highest window in the wall, where he pauses to listen and look down, a moment on the roofs of the town, and the moonlight flowing over all. Beneath in the churchyard lie the dead, and their night encampment on the hill, wrapped in silence deep and still that he could hear, like a sentinel's tread. A watchful night wind as it went, creeping from tent to tent, seemingly to whisper, all is well. A moment only he feels the spell of the place and the hour and the secret dread, the lonely belfry and the dead, for suddenly all his thoughts are bent on a shadowy something far away, where the river widens to meet the bay, a line of black that bends and floats on a rising tide, a bridge of boats. Meanwhile, impatient to mount and ride, booted and spurred with a heavy stride, on the opposite shore walks Paul Revere. Now he passes his horse aside, now he gazes at the landscape far and near, then impetuous he stamps the earth and turns and tightens the saddle girth, but mostly he watches with eager search the belfry tower of the Old North Church. Rising from the graves on the hill, lonely and spectre and somber and still, but lo, as he looks on the belfry height, a glitter and then a gleam of light. He springs to his saddle, the bridle he turns, but lingers and gazes till fall in his sight, a second lamp in the belfry burns. A hurry of hooves in a village street, a shape in the moonlight, a bulk in the dark. Beneath it the pebbles and passing a spark. Struck out by his steed, flying fearless and fleet, and that is all. Yet through the gloom the fate of the nation was riding that night. The spark struck out by his steed in his flight, kindled the land into flame with its heat. He left the village and mounted the steep. Beneath him, tranquil and broad and deep, is the mystic river meeting the ocean tides. Under the elders that skirt its edge, now soft on sand, now loud on the ledge, is heard the tramp of his steed as he rides. It is 12 by the village clock as he crossed the bridge into Medford town. He heard the crowing of the cock and the barking of the farmer's dog, and felt the damp of the river fog, which rises when the sun goes down. It is 1 by the village clock as he gallops into Lexington. He saw the gilded weathercock swim in the moonlight as he passed. The meeting house windows, blank and bare, gazed at him with a spectral glare, as if already stood aghast at the bloody work that they would look upon. It is 2 by the village clock as he comes to the bridge in Concord town. He heard the bleating of the flock and the twittering of the birds in the trees, and felt the breath of the morning breeze blowing over the meadows brown. And one was safe and asleep in his bed, who at the bridge be the first to fall, who that day be lying dead, pierced by a British musket ball. You know the rest of the books you've read, how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers gave them ball for behind each fence and farmyard wall, chasing the redcoats down the lane that crossed the fields to emerge again under the trees and at the bend in the road, and only pausing to fire and load. So through the night rode Paul Revere, and so through the night went his cry of alarm. To every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance and not of fear, a voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, a word that shall echo forevermore. Born on the night wind of the past, through all our history to the last, in the hour of darkness and peril and need, the people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed and the midnight message of Paul Revere. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. He wrote it in a meter as you're riding a horse. So he did that, and that was published in January 1861. 3 months later, on the anniversary of the Battle of Lexington and Concord, 6th Massachusetts Regiment soldiers were killed in Baltimore, changing trains going to Washington, D.C. by Southern sympathizers. So with the publication of the poem and that incident down in Baltimore on the anniversary of Lexington and Concord, it elevated the poem into American literature, probably the greatest narrative poem in American literature. So the inspiration, the steeple, and that was, again, written in 1861. All right, we're going to go on to the oldest church in Boston, Old North, built in 1723.